All right, today I've got my Benchmade 9050 Auto. It's an older knife. It's probably about 20 years old. But, it's been acting a little sluggish lately. This is how one of the autos from Benchmade should work. Very quick and snappy. My 950, you can see it just moved here, but super slow. Sometimes it'll come out a little bit. Sometimes it gets stuck. Maintenance on these knives is pretty simple. What you can do to start before you tear this down is where I'm pointing, that screw is an adjustment screw and you can tighten or loosen it. That should be your first step. I've tried to adjust it, loosen it a little bit. The knife's still acting sluggish, so I'm willing to bet that there's probably some dirt and it just needs a little love and care. All right, today we're breaking down the Benchmade Auto 9050, and this is what you'll need. Number 10 Torx. I like to have an awl or something to gently pry with. To clean it, you're going to need a microfiber cloth, some rubbing alcohol. When you're putting it back together, you want to make sure you lube it. I like to use super lube because it allows me to control. It's almost like a paste versus an oil, but this 3-in-1 will work as well. If you've got the money and you've got the Benchmade blue lube, then by all means use what the manufacturer recommends. And when I put it back together, I like to use this Loctite thread locker, the blue one. I find that this Loctite's a lot more controllable in the stick form than the liquid. And when you're putting these back together, you don't want to have that liquid Loctite seeping into your operating mechanism because that can gum it up as well. And so again, that's why I like the stick. So in this video, I'm not going to bore you with, the time it takes to pull a screw out or this tedious cleaning. But you get the idea. What I like to do is just wipe it down with this lint-free cloth with a little bit of alcohol on it. And once we get all those parts nice and clean, we'll reassemble it and use just a little bit of lube. We don't want it to attract dirt and grime unnecessarily. So be careful with how much you lube this when you put it back together. First thing you want to do is go ahead and remove number 10 Torx. And we're going to go ahead and hold the knife firmly and remove the adjustment screw or the pivot screw. Okay, so disassembling these 9050s can be a little tricky. All right, so this pin on the top part of the blade can be a sticking point. What I like to do is just get an awl in there and just pry nice and slow. Don't scratch your knife. You just kind of have to work it back and forth. Keep going, and we're going to remove the lock bar. There we go. It's finally off. Now we'll take a closer look to see what might be in here causing it to not operate as smooth as it should. Just wanted to show you just how dirty it is. Here's a close-up of the blade. You can tell there's just a ton of gunk and stuff in there. And just be careful when you do this. Take your time, but all that dirt and grime coming off of it, no wonder it didn't want to open right. All right, so this knife is broken down pretty much all the way, and I just want to go through and show you some parts. So, of course, we've got the blade. Here we've got our safety. Here's the safety spring, our button, and the body. One thing that I find is this pivot pin right here can cause me some trouble getting it out. And again, when you've got this knife and you're trying to take it apart, one of the things that works good is just slowly work it apart and let it pop. But be careful, don't lose your springs, and remember how they all go back together. So in this section, you can see the coil spring, and above it is the button spring. And on the lock portion, you can see the spring for the safety, along with the button and the pin. So here, I just wanted to show you this one piece, this hole right here. That's one of the holes for our clip on the other side. Just go ahead and turn that around. And good example of what can mess up this mechanism is liquid thread lock coming out of there and seeping into here. One of the things I recommend is Loctite makes almost like a chapstick thread locker, and I like to use that over the liquid because it doesn't seep into these parts. So I find this super lube works good when I'm putting it back together. It's very controllable. I know Benchmade likes to promote their blue lube, but this is cheaper and it works for me. All right, we'll go ahead and put our safety back in, make sure it's operating. Now it's time to put it all back together, see how it works. All right, I wanted to bring a little bit of attention. You see that hole in the blade? That's going to go into your operating spring, just so you can see that that spring where it rises, and that hole, that's how it all fits back together. The way I do this is I go ahead and take that spring, I take it out. Once I've cleaned it up, go ahead and put it in the blade, and then I go ahead and take that little piece of the spring and I get it worked into that hole, and you should just be able to pop it right in, and once you start to feel that spring action, you know the pin's in there. One thing I find with these 9050s is you've got to go ahead and take the spring and put it on the blade before reassembling it. You won't be able to get the top part of the spring onto the blade if you don't put it on the blade first. You work it in the hole. Once I get that spring put on the blade, I go ahead and fold it, hold it with my hand, because if not, it'll release. And then I work on the button. I go ahead and drop the spring in, and then take that button, put it on there as well. When I'm getting these screws back together, this is the Loctite I like to use. It's a medium thread locker. Make sure you don't use the red stuff. This is the blue. I like it because I can just dip that screw in a little bit, put some on, and I don't have to risk that, like with the liquid, this is going to flow down to the operating mechanism and jam it up. And so that's why I like to use this. When I've got that knife folded back, before I start to put the scales back together, I like to go ahead and engage the safety. That makes it easier for me. And we just go ahead and put these 3 in, then we'll put our pivot screw in last. Again, I like to put a little thread lock on these as I'm putting it all back. And then just to finish it off, I go ahead and take a little bit more alcohol and get all the oil off the outer body and the blade. Go ahead and clean it up, and works a lot better. Almost good as new. Well, there you go. That's how I break down and disassemble and reassemble my Benchmade, clean it up, lube it. And this knife, again, is 20 years old. Really great knife from Benchmade. So this knife won't be as snappy as like the 9400 or some of the other autos, but that's because of its size. So you just don't feel the recoil, but that's how it should work. 20 minutes, you can tear it down, put it back together. It's a lot quicker than sending it off to the manufacturer. So hope you enjoyed. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, give us some likes, and leave some comments down below. Thank you.